Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Well, we'll start with a few housekeeping notes, as always. I'd like everybody to hold up their cell phone and turn it off. Young people, you have cell phones? They're off? Thank you, thank you, thank you. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us be glad in it. I want to thank you all for coming today, and I want to welcome you to Rutgers University, to the Ruth Bader Ginsburg Hall. I'd like to say how wonderful of an occasion this is, that we are honoring a woman who was a trailblazer in the civil rights movement. We're honoring a woman who was for lack of better terms, a crackerjack lawyer. We're honoring a woman who deserves to be honored. So at this point, we're going to open up. Come in. Oh, by the way, my name is Della Moses Walker. I am the director of the New Jersey chapter of the Ebony Society of Philatelic Events and Reflections, also known as ESPER. So we welcome you here today. We'll have our presentation of colors by the Joint Base McGuire-Dix Army Air Force, Lakehurst, New Jersey. Will you stand, please? And while the colors are presented, we're asking Mr. Kevin Maynard to come forward and render the Star-Spangled Banner, followed by Lift Every Voice and Sing. Kevin Maynard is the father of Kyle Maynard, Rutgers School of Arts and Science, Newark class of 24, and he is also a renowned singer, opera singer.
Yes.
Oh, here's
and here
Kyle.
comes the real star.
We got a duet?
No, we're not.
It's Kyle Maynard, Kevin's daughter.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hail at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watch were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, Thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, Thou who hast by Thy might led us into the light. Keep us forever in the path, we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places, our God, where we met Thee. Lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget Thee. Shadowed beneath Thy hand, may we forever stand true to our God, true to our native land, true to our God, true to our native land.
Thank you, Kyle. And thanks to our honor guard, Joint Base McGuire-Dix in Lakehurst, New Jersey. You may be seated. And may we have another round of applause for Kyle Maynard with the beautiful vocal rendition. Awesome, awesome, awesome. The Reverend Dr. M. William Howard Jr., Pastor Emeritus of Bethany Baptist Church in Newark. And Dr. Howard is a soldier that marched, that did the march, y'all. He marched. He fought for our rights, and we'd like to bring him to the podium to give us the invocation. Thank you.
You should watch me do this because if you keep living, you'll need to know how to do it. My task is to offer an invocation. But before I start, let me just say that the Maynards are emblematic of the world-famous Bethany Baptist Church. That's right. Though it is my task to offer the invocation, it would be a glaring omission if I fail to acknowledge the irony of this moment when the nation is pressed to confront a fascistic element of the population that appears hell-bent on undoing the very legacy that we are gathered here to honor and to celebrate. Nevertheless, for this historic and most befitting recognition of a giant in the struggle for democracy and the rule of law, we evoke the spirit of the God that gave her courage, the God that inspired and sustained the people of the St. Luke's Episcopal Church of New Haven. This occasion is nothing if not a reminder of the road ahead, a road we would be right to have assumed had been cleared by such pioneers as the one we face today. Yet we are reminded that what Constance Baker Motley achieved through her life's work must be eternally defended. And we shall certainly know the measure of her being, the substance of her character, and her uncompromising determination if you and I should dare to answer the call in defense of her work. As it was in those dark hours when a break with an old regime of legal slavery and subhuman treatment seemed unattainable, our prayer this morning is that we too may be given strength and discipline by the divine power that was given to her peers, the likes of Medgar Evers and James Meredith, to do what we must do to carry on this great legacy. Amen.
Thank you, Dr. Howard. And I'm going to extend another welcome because I am so glad that you all are here. So I'm going to say welcome again, and a special welcome to Central High School Blue Devils. And a welcome to, shout out your school, Barringer, special welcome to Barringer. What's your mascot? What's your mascot? Barringer Bears. Do you have a call? Do you have a, no, you don't have a call? Okay, Barringer Bears and Central Blue Devils. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And looks like University's in the house. Let's hear it for University High as they enter. Again, it's so great to have you all here. Thank you for coming. Thought it not robbery to honor Judge Constance Baker Motley. Yes, indeed. There are more seats over here on this side. If you run out, come on over to the other side, sweethearts. Before we play the Esper video, I want to tell you a little bit about stamp collecting. They call stamp collectors philatelists. Philatelists, and it's spelled P-H-I-L, like Philadelphia. Late, L-A-T-E, you never want to be late. And lick, L-I-C, philatelic. So we're philatelists. The post office is a philatelic organization, and you are attending a philatelic event. Everybody say philatelic. University, say philatelic. All right, come, come, come. We're glad that you were with us today. And I'd like to know, is Dr. Watts in the house? Dr. Wilma Watts, did she arrive yet? Okay. All righty, so we're going to play the Esper video. The Esper video is about the Ebony Society of Philatelic Events and Reflections, a philatelic organization. You're at a philatelic event, and you're going to see a very brief philatelic video.
The Ebony Society of Philatelic Events and Reflections, better known as Esper, stands as a vibrant global stamp society, passionately championing the celebration of stamps and philatelic treasures depicting the rich tapestry of the African diaspora. Founded by the indomitable Dr. Esper G. Hayes, our nonprofit organization radiates a profound commitment to nurturing both the art of philately and the participation of Black enthusiasts. Driven by a promise made to the legendary Jesse Owens, the society's roots delve deep into the 1980s. Esper's dynamic community of 300+ members spans continents, fostering a powerful network of collectors and enthusiasts. Our heralded quarterly newsletter, Reflections, showcases African diaspora narratives woven into philatelic gems. The Society's website is a treasure trove spotlighting stamps from global corners and pivotal Black figures. Through lectures, presentations, scholarships, and youth clubs, Esper's mission transcends stamp collecting, sowing seeds of education, heritage, and pride. With Esper, the art of philately becomes a vibrant journey into history, culture, and unity. To find out more about Esper, its mission, membership benefits, and events, visit esperstamps.org.
My high school scholars, I have a prize for the person who stands up and spells philatelic. I have a prize, a membership to the Ebony Society of Philatelic Events and Reflections. Will one of you come forward and spell philatelic? It's like Philadelphia, and never be late, and lick. Hello, Philadelphia. Never be late, and lick. Will one of you adults? One of you adults? Oh, yes, sir. Nice and loud. Let's give him a hand. What's your name, young man? What's your name? Come to the front. Quickly, quickly, come on. Real quick. Real quick. ladies and gentlemen, this is James. I commend him for his courage. Thank you, James. And we have a membership to the Ebony Society of Philatelic Events and Reflections for you. Thank you, sir. What's your last name, James? Say it in the mic.
James Hathcock,
And how old are you?
16.
16. And what are your career aspirations?
I want to be a defense attorney or I want to be a neurosurgeon.
All right, let's hear it for James. Woo! Thank you. Dr. Wilma Hunt Watts is on her way, so we'll just hold a little spot for her a little later in the program. We're going to see a video now from the United States Postal Service. And we're asking Miss Bonita Terry to stand by. After the video, you're going to hear Miss Bonita Terry. And we'll have the stamp unveiling.
Constance Baker Motley. You may not know her, but you should.
Constance Baker Motley is a giant in civil rights law. She was called the Civil Rights Queen in her time and was very well known, and yet Americans today know her far less than they should given her significance. She is one of those lawyers who made it possible for Americans to gather together, to attend schools together in the way that we're accustomed to today.
There is not a woman civil rights lawyer today in this country that doesn't owe a great debt to Constance Baker Motley. She literally broke the mold. She did it all. It kills me that so many people in this country don't know who was the person who opened the doors to segregated Southern universities. It was this woman.
She is inspiring. She was amazing. And I'm so glad that the Postal Service, through the stamp, will help generations of Americans come to know Constance Baker Motley.
Well, my mother was one of 9 children. Her parents were immigrants from Nevis in the West Indies. They came through Ellis Island with lots of other immigrants from around the world around 1907. And they settled in New Haven, Connecticut. And her father was the steward at the Skull and Bones Club at Yale, one of the secret societies.
She didn't have money to go to college, but she was very active in the community, and she gave a speech to a community center board about why a community center was not being used by the community, the Black community. And the philanthropist who built the center heard her and said to her, "Why aren't you in college?" And she very honestly said, "Because my parents cannot afford to send me to college." And she did tell him, "I want to be a lawyer." And he said, "I don't know about women being lawyers, but if that's what you want to be, I'll send you to college to be a lawyer, and I'll also send you to law school." And he did send her off to college. First, she went to Fisk University for 1 year, but when she crossed the Mason-Dixon line and had to leave her train car and be hustled to an all-Black train car was her first experience, and that was just beyond her comprehension. And living in a community where it was Negroes only and whites only was not something she could really put up with. So she only stayed at Fisk for a year, and then she transferred to NYU and finished quickly. She finished in 3 years, and then she went to Columbia Law School.
Well, my mother was a second-year law student at Columbia. She got a part-time job working at a little legal storefront known as the NAACP, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, and working for a young lawyer there named Thurgood Marshall.
She worked as a lawyer alongside Thurgood Marshall to change our country, to change our society by working on cases like Brown versus Board of Education, the 1954 case, which is one of the great cases of constitutional law that made it unconstitutional to segregate students by race in public schools.
It was really an apartheid country prior to that, where separate but equal had been endorsed by the Supreme Court in 1897, and it wasn't until 1954 that that was overturned. And then, even though segregation in schools was overturned, it had to be done, as the court said, with all deliberate speed. So cases had to be brought individually in every case in the South. And so she argued many important cases in that effort, the most important ones being, I would say, the case to admit James Meredith to the University of Mississippi, and then Charlene Hunter and Hamilton Holmes to the University of Georgia, and Harvey Gantt to Clemson College in South Carolina. Those were probably her most prominent cases, but there were hundreds of cases over the years.
She also was a path-breaking politician in the state of New York, where she was a New York State senator and ultimately Manhattan Borough president, where she had tremendous power over the budget of the city of New York and helped shape and improve New York City in ways that present generations are still profiting from. And then finally, in 1966, President Lyndon Baines Johnson, who of course was a friend of the civil rights movement, appointed Constance Baker Motley to the federal bench. She was the first Black woman to be appointed a federal judge.
I remember being at the federal courthouse where my mother was sworn in as the first woman judge in the Southern District of New York and the first Black woman federal judge in the whole country. And I remember a clip of my mother being asked by reporters how she was feeling about this new job. And she said with a straight face, "Oh, I'll have to work very hard to try to keep up with the men." And I think there are people who heard that and thought that she was serious when she said it, when obviously she wasn't serious at all. She had argued 10 cases in the Supreme Court as a lawyer. She won 9 of them. The case that she lost, the court reversed itself on 20 years later, thus perfecting her record of really 10-0, which is not bad for a Supreme Court advocate.
When it came to an assignment like Judge Motley, I had to do a little bit of research on it, but remembering some incredible footage of her going down south, her bravely confronting racism and hatred and danger, it was like, I have to do her justice. I have to represent in my art something that at least express for myself how much I honor and appreciate what she's done for our country and for the world. It wasn't pressure, it was more like play on the word, do her justice.
On behalf of the 640,000 women and men of the U.S. Postal Service, I am pleased to present the 47th stamp in the Black Heritage Series honoring civil rights pioneer Constance Baker Motley.
stamp.
It's available now at your local post office and USPS.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, I call to the stage representing the United States Postal Service, Ms. Bonita Terry.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Benita Terry. I'm the manager of customer service for Newark, Maine Post Office. And on behalf of the United States Postal Service, I would like to thank everyone for joining us today as we honor Judge Constance Baker Motley. At this time, I would like to invite all the presenters to the podium for the stamp unveiling. Y'all can go over there. Of course, I needed it. Thank you so much. You're welcome.
Dr. Howard. It's a beautiful stamp, isn't it? Beautiful stamp. One of the prettiest stamps the U.S. Post Office has produced, in my opinion. And I'll be right back. I need to get my program. We are going to see another video. And before we see the video, I want to talk just a little bit more about why we're here. We're here because the U.S. Post Office issues a Black History stamp every year during Black History Month. For the past 47 years, the Post Office has issued a Black Heritage stamp. Now, there are other stamps where Blacks and people of color are featured on stamps. For example, Jimi Hendrix, Wilt Chamberlain, Maya Angelou. Anybody want to shout out a couple? John Lewis, yes. August Wilson, yes, he was one of the Black Heritage series. He was a member of the Black Heritage series. So James Baldwin, Alvin Ailey, Malcolm X was also a part of the Black Heritage series. Langston Hughes, Toni Morrison, So you did your homework here. I like that. I like that you know your stamps. So inasmuch, I want to tell you how that came about. About 50 years ago, there was a young man by the name of Clarence Irving, a philatelist, a great stamp collector. He petitioned the U.S. Post Office and said, you know, I want to see more people of color on stamps. I want to see more women on stamps. And so after several meetings, they got together and they developed the Black Heritage Series. It is one of the longest running series in the U.S. Post Office history. Yes, I think it's second only to Christmas. You know, they issue a new Christmas stamp. So I also want to call your attention to the philatelic display on my left. It was curated by Esper's webmaster, Mr. Clarence McKnight. And Mr. McKnight has a collection of stamps, and he specializes in any event that you want. Clarence, where are you? Would you shout out some of the features of the exhibit?
Wasn't expecting to come on stage. I have the Black Heritage Series over there. I have the Underground Railroad. I have the former More Perfect Union. I have Malcolm X. I have some hand-painted cachets. I have a little bit of everything, reference to the Black Heritage Series, also reference to the struggle and the civil rights movement. A lot of that stuff is over there. I designed most of the posters over there, and I tried to make it as positive as possible and more inclusive as possible. I made some special ones for the Motley family and one for the Clarence Irving family also too. They could take with them today, okay?
Thank you, Clarence. We also have, representing Esper, Don Neal, who is the editor of the Reflections magazine, and he's sitting at the table in the back, and he has awesome cachets back there. You want to take a look. I just saw a beautiful young lady come in. Is that Dr. Watts? No? Okay, well, she's on her way. All righty, we're going to see another video. And this one is the James Meredith admission to the University of Mississippi. Young people, watch carefully, because, you know, our ancestors, not even our ancestors and those younger people like Dr. Howard here, octogenarian, they really had to struggle to get into college. They really, really went through some stuff. And I want you to watch the video and just appreciate what you see in the video. Thank you.
This is a photograph of my mother, Constance Baker Motley, taken around 1961 during the James Meredith case, attempting to integrate the University of Mississippi. She's standing on the steps of one of the federal courthouses in Jackson and is surrounded by two white women who are protesting her efforts and the efforts of the federal government to integrate the University of Mississippi. Hence the placards calling Kennedy out for treason and creating bloodshed in Mississippi, condemning the NAACP. My mother looking out beyond them, and people would often ask, what was it like for her during the civil rights movement with all these hostile whites around? And she often said that it didn't really faze her that much. And in this photograph, you can see that. Her vision is completely beyond them. She just wasn't distracted by the hostility of those around her. She had worked at the Legal Defense Fund as a lawyer starting in 1946, and she had been working many other cases. So by the time the Meredith case came around, she was really a pro. Part of the lawyer's job was to keep the plaintiffs propped up so that they could get through what took years of litigation. Meredith had a lot of difficulty. There were times when he and Charlene and others wanted to abandon it. And Charlene wanted to go back to Wayne State where she had started, to go to parties. And at one point my mother said, look, I have a husband and son at home. I want to go home too. But we can't because we have to get through what we're doing. Suddenly, Attorney Motley actually turned into a person and was able to focus on her as a person. But for people in the workplace, she was very single-minded about what she was doing.
And we thank the supplier of that video. It was very informative. Our next speaker, Dr. Susan Davis, Esquire. Come on up, Juris Doctor. Rutgers Law School, class of '81, and she was a law clerk to Judge Motley. Would you give her a warm welcome?
Good morning, everybody. It is really an honor to be here at a ceremony honoring Judge Motley and this beautiful stamp. It's particularly special because I have been a union lawyer for 42 years, and one of our clients is the National Association of Letter Carriers, which is the union representing the postal workers, so it is particularly special. So you have hopefully learned a lot today about Judge Motley, and you will hear more from the speakers after me. I'm going to be a little bit more personal in my remarks and talk about my experience as her law clerk in 1981. The richness of that experience for me not only helped me become a union lawyer that could stand toe-to-toe with lawyers from the biggest corporate firms in this country representing employers, but it also taught me the power of the law as an instrument for change in this country. So from the very beginning, I was a law student here at Rutgers, and the only thing that I wanted to do when I graduated was to clerk for Judge Motley. I had read a lot about her civil rights heritage, about her work as a judge, about her intellect and her fortitude, and it was the only thing I applied for when I was graduating. That was the one clerkship I applied for. By some miracle of the universe, she hired me, and which I was completely gobsmacked that she did. And I started the clerkship totally intimidated by her reputation for intellectual rigor and the impossibly high standards she held for herself as well as everyone else. She would come to chambers every single morning before 8 o'clock in the morning, and she would leave every evening after 8 o'clock. She was picked up by her husband every single night, who even she called Mr. Motley. I hope she didn't do that at home, Connie. And we, the clerks, were expected to be there before she got there and stay till after she left. So the hours were very, very long. A few things I loved about the clerkship and her: she painted her courtroom pink, which was really unusual for a woman in 1981, for a lawyer, for a judge, and for a judge who was a woman of color. And she did it boldly and proudly. She called the bathroom in her chambers her inner chambers, which we always giggled about. She once told me that you could tell when white men were lying on the witness stand because the tips of their ears turned pink. And I have spent the last 42 years looking at the tips of white men's ears as they're talking. She ate the same sandwich every single day for lunch, and she invited her clerks in to eat with her and talk about the cases she was handling. And she had a photographic memory. She would be handling something, this is 1981, she'd have an issue and she'd said, you know, you should take a look at Jones versus Jones. I think it's from 1959, and it's probably in volume 137 of the Fed Sup, which was the books there they kept the decisions in. Do you guys remember what books are? I'm talking to the high school students. So anyway, I was 26 years old. I was very terrified of this legal giant. She was also a very large, imposing presence, and she had a very deep voice. And one night around 9 o'clock, I was sitting at my desk. The clerk's desks were outside of her chambers, and I was sobbing. And I felt the work was so intellectually challenging, and I was physically exhausted, and I just felt like I couldn't do it, that I wasn't smart enough and tough enough to do the work. And she came out, and she said in a very gruff voice, because she often had a very gruff voice, "What are you crying about?" And I looked at her and I said, I feel like I've been getting by and fooling everybody for my whole life. I don't know whether anybody here feels that. And I feel like I've finally been discovered. And she had a big smile broke out on her face, and she had a wonderful smile, and her eyes twinkled when she smiled. And she said, honey, I've been on the federal bench for 15 years, and I am still waiting for them to find me out. So that lesson has stayed with me for the last 42, 43 years, and I've passed it on to many young people, particularly young women lawyers who I mentor. I think that we often feel like we are imposters, like we are fooling people, like we're not good enough. But what she taught me is that the trick is to push through that feeling, to believe in yourself, to believe in your ability to do things. And in addition to her civil rights legacy, that is the one kernel of Judge Motley's legacy that I want to leave, particularly to the students in this office, in the auditorium. So thank you very much.
Thank you for that very informative and personal bird's eye view of Judge Motley. It was great. We will now have remarks from Dr. Dorothy E. Roberts, Esquire. Professor Roberts, Juris Doctor Roberts, is a professor at law, sociology, and civil rights at the University of Pennsylvania. She's a former professor at Rutgers Law School. And she too clerked for Judge Motley. So let's give her a warm welcome as she comes to the stage.
Oh my goodness, it's such an honor and privilege. We were just saying how the blessing of clerking for Judge Motley is unbelievable. It's incredible, and I'm just so honored and excited to be part of this long-deserved ceremony honoring Judge Motley. I have similar recollections as Susan has about clerking for Judge Motley. I too only wanted to clerk for her, my hero, and also was just so blown away when I got that call from Nancy Kilson, who was her clerk at the time. Judge Motley is offering you a clerkship. I can remember exactly where I was standing, exactly what I was doing when I got that call. And it was one of the most wonderful calls of my life, certainly a highlight of my career. And I could go on and on, but my assignment is to highlight some of the remarkable accomplishments of Judge Motley, which you have all already heard about, and I know her niece, Constance Royster, will be saying even more. So I will give some brief remarks. It's very hard to capture. No matter how many videos you watch, how many commemorations you participate in, how many speeches about her that you hear, just how monumental she was. And she had the stature to match it. I don't know how many of you knew her in person, but she was a stately woman. She walked in a room and she just took the attention because of her very physical stature. But it was more than that, it was a spirit behind it. She was a dignified woman. So we've heard words pathbreaker, pioneer, trailblazer. She was all of those things. As you've heard at the NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund, she was part of a revolutionary trio, which included Thurgood Marshall, who of course became a U.S. Supreme Court judge, the first Black Supreme Court justice. I won't say anything about the next one, but the third is trying to make up for it. But Thurgood Marshall was a giant who we saw hired Judge Motley, and Robert Carter, who was a fellow judge along with Judge Motley on the Southern District of New York Federal Court. Her brilliant, courageous, and tenacious lawyering was absolutely essential to the civil rights litigation effort that toppled the Jim Crow regime in the United States. And what I want to emphasize is how she embodied in her own person breaking down seemingly insurmountable barriers. You know, think about when she entered a courtroom in the South. As her son said multiple times, he mentioned she was involved in hundreds of cases in the South. And when she entered the courtroom, she was often, perhaps usually, the first Black lawyer that addressed those Southern judges. And at the same time, she was usually, maybe always, the first woman lawyer to address those judges. So think about how path-breaking that was, just to be in that courtroom, let alone the kinds of cases that she was litigating and winning throughout the South. Now, she wasn't welcomed in those Southern towns or those courtrooms. She faced hostility. As Joel Motley just said in the video, she wasn't distracted by white people's hostility, but she was hated by those white Southerners, as you saw in the video, and she literally risked her life going to the South over and over and over again, contesting the white supremacist regime there, which many people thought would never be ended. Judge Motley, as you heard, argued 10 cases before the U.S. Supreme Court, and I'm glad that Joel Motley corrected what I've often read, that she lost one of them, because in fact she was victorious in the end, 10 out of 10 cases, and she was involved in dozens of cases before the U.S. Supreme Court that were successful in ending de facto and de jure racial segregation. Judge Motley was responsible for the cases that desegregated universities in the South, including representing James Meredith in his successful legal battle to enroll in the University of Mississippi. As she wrote in her autobiography, she defiantly, quote, rejected any notion that my race or sex would bar my success in life. She was a series of firsts. I don't know if there's anybody else who has this many firsts in her record. She was the first Black woman to argue a case before the Supreme Court, the first Black woman to serve as a federal judge, the first Black woman to sit in the state Senate, and the first woman ever elected as Manhattan Borough President. So Judge Motley's courage and dedication are a testament to the power of movement lawyering to make radical, revolutionary change that may seem impossible now. But we have her record to show that we can do it. Joining movements with lawyers who are as dedicated and courageous as she is, as our role models, and also an inspiration not only to Black women lawyers, but I would say to generations of Black women and others who may feel left out, who may feel, as Susan said, they don't belong, right? They're imposters. But her words, I'm so glad you said those words, Susan, and her example are an inspiration to generations of people who may feel excluded, that we can make a change. And so I'm just so honored to be part of this long overdue commemoration of Judge Motley, and she deserves so much more. But thank you all who organized this.
Dr. Howard, I think I'm going to try to come up like you do the next time I come up. All right. Yes. Okay. Now we have a very, very special treat. Very, very special treat, our keynote speaker. And to introduce our keynote speaker, we'd like to call to the stage Newark Central High School student, class of 25, class of 24, Ayomide Adekoya. Give Ayomide a round of applause. After this introduction, the next voice you will hear will be that of our keynote speaker, Mrs. Constance Royster.
Constance Royster is a recognized leader and advisor in the nonprofit fields of education, arts, culture, and religion. She guides individuals, organizations, and institutions towards substantial success. Ms. Royster was a law clerk to a federal judge and associate and appointment New York City law firm, an assistant United States attorney for the Southern District of New York, and she was a founding partner of a major minority and woman-owned New York law firm. 25 years ago, she shifted her professional focus to civic and community engagements, leveraging her legal expertise for the benefits of nonprofits academia. She retired as a director of development at the Yale Divinity School. Ms. Royster was among the first women to attend Yale College. Her story is told in Yale Needs Women by Ann Gardner Perkins. Ms. Royster holds a JD for Rutgers University Law School, Newark, and a BA cum laude for Yale University. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ms. Constance Royster.
Thank you for that very much. Let's see. Good morning, everyone. I am very glad to be here this morning on behalf of my family to honor my aunt, Constance Baker Motley, for whom I'm named. I want to thank the hosts and sponsors of this event. Thank you especially to the United States Postal Service for issuing this beautiful stamp. And ESPER, an organization I had not heard of until I met many enthusiastic ESPER members at the unveiling of this gorgeous stamp on January 31st in New York City. I also want to thank Rutgers Law School, my alma mater, the chancellor, deans, and professors who contributed to making this day happen, especially Dean Bond, Dean Steinbaum, and Professor Crawford. I'm also glad to reconnect with Dorothy Roberts and Susan Davis, who were law clerks to my aunt and whom I've known over the years. This Forever stamp and this event today celebrate and recognize Judge Motley's contributions to American civil rights and jurisprudence for sure. It's long overdue. And it's the 47th stamp in the Black Heritage series. It's also nearly 47 years this spring that I graduated from Rutgers Law School, Newark. It seems like yesterday, but it's 47 years. It was an especially proud day for me and my family because Judge Motley was the graduation speaker for my graduation and for the entire Newark campus. I had no recollection of what she said that day. Who would? But Professor Crawford retrieved a copy of the speech from the Columbia Archives, and I can assure you that she was a woman before her time. That speech reads as well today as it did then. She saw things that are happening today. She talked about needing more lawyers to fight civil rights. She talked about needing more doctors for the inner cities and for rural areas. She talked about needing more graduates to work on climate change. That was almost 50 years ago. I'm glad I got to read that speech again. As you heard, Judge Constance Baker Motley was born and raised in New Haven, Connecticut. She was the 9th of 12 children and a first-generation immigrant. Perhaps some of you in this room are first-generation immigrants. Her parents, my grandparents, had both come to the United States in the early 1900s from an island in the Caribbean called Nevis. Most people have never heard of Nevis. It's teeny, but beautiful. Growing up, her neighbors and her classmates were also immigrants. They were mostly Irish, Polish, Jewish, Italian, and other West Indians from other islands in the Caribbean. Her life centered around her church, as the good preacher said. It was an Episcopal church, one of the oldest Black Episcopal churches in the country. And it also centered around a community center that was built for the Black community. She was a very good student, and she had graduated from high school with honors, but there was no money in her family for her to go to college. Her father cooked for students at Yale University, including the famous Skull and Bones Secret Society, as you heard my cousin mention. And sometimes he held down multiple jobs. This is not an unusual situation, is it, in underserved communities? Her mother stayed home and tended to all those children and to new arrivals coming to New Haven from the West Indies. Her life changed forever, however, when a wealthy, white, New Haven philanthropist and businessman heard her speak. His name was Clarence Blakesley, and I believe in saying names, even white names, because he changed her life. He offered to pay for her to go to college and to law school, even though the idea of women going to law school in the early 1940s was almost unheard of, certainly a Black woman. But he saw something in her that he felt needed further effort, and he paved the way and paved the way for her. For a young woman who had barely been out of New Haven, Connecticut, she took the train by herself all the way to Fisk University in Nashville, Tennessee. And she suffered the indignity of having to leave the train car she was in and transfer to an all, quote, colored train car when she crossed the Mason-Dixon line. That was her first assault, and it led to her not wanting to stay in the South for more than that first year at Fisk. It also posed a resolve in her to do something about the indignity and inequality which she experienced in the South. So she finished college at New York University and then went to Columbia Law School, all of which paid for by Mr. Blakesley. During law school, the hand of fate or luck touched her again when she got an internship with Thurgood Marshall at the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. She continued working with the Legal Defense Fund because upon graduation, no big law firm, which is to say, no big white law firm, would hire a Black woman in New York City. Judge Motley's career at the Legal Defense Fund was extraordinary, as you've heard from the other speakers and on the videos. It was marked by some of the most important desegregation cases in history. You've heard about them and seen them in the stories and the videos. And one thing I think may have slipped through is that she wrote the original brief in Brown v. Board of Education. There are stories still untold and unknown about this hidden figure, as it were. And still, as a woman, her story needs to be told. It needs to be known. During my lifetime, she was a lawyer, a New York State senator, the borough president of Manhattan, a judge in the federal district court, and then chief judge of the United States District Court for the Southern District of New York. By the time I went to law school, she was already a judge. During the 3 years that I attended law school here at Rutgers, I lived with Judge Motley and her husband. She was always there for me. She was a role model and an example of excellence for the rest of the immediate and very large extended family as well. As she said and pointed out in her comments at commencement in 1977, I was the first lawyer after her in the family, but there are now quite a few others. Her influence was great in the immediate and extended family, but her influence was great way beyond the immediate and extended family, as you heard earlier from her law clerks. And she was always encouraging. James, who won the Esper Award there, you can be, and she would tell you, that you can be both a criminal defense attorney and a neuroscientist if you want to be. Also mentioned just a few minutes ago that as a Black woman lawyer in the South, she was subjected to horrible disrespect, name-calling, racial slurs. She was underestimated as a politician, and even in the early years, she was underestimated as a judge. There are stories, if you read her autobiography, about that. But she overcame everything. There was nothing that was going to keep her down. She worked hard. Plus, she balanced a demanding professional life at every single stage while being a wife and a mother and a daughter and a sibling, with all kinds of people relying on her to be motivated and to be supported. She was way ahead of her times. But Judge Motley was brave, she was bold, she was daring, she was generous, and she was very smart. Her family, church, education, and being of service gave her the foundation that has allowed her to have strong shoulders upon which not only Vice President Kamala Harris and Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson have stood, but that we can all stand upon. This stamp gives young people of all races, genders, backgrounds, and abilities the opportunity to learn about a great leader and to make their own aspirational future plans. Only 2 years ago, Tamika Brown Nagin wrote in her biography of Judge Constance Baker Motley, which is called Civil Rights Queen, Motley's world-changing accomplishments should place her in the pantheon of great American leaders. But far too few Americans today know Motley's name and deeds. Her likeness is not even featured on a postage stamp. Not anymore. Charlie Palmer's beautiful United States postage stamp will help correct the record of Constance Baker Motley's place in history, I hope. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Mrs. Royster. Thank you very much. You know, we honor people in many, many ways. And the city of Newark, come, my dear. This is Miss Anissa Bay, legislative aide to Council President McIver. And we also have a resolution that she's going to read a little bit of, just a tiny bit, because we're behind. And we'd like to ask a former Assemblyman William Payne, you want to just wave or you want to come up with us? Because the county has also issued, this stair on this side, sir. The county has issued a resolution. The Honorable Mayor Raz Baraka has issued a proclamation honoring Constance Baker Motley. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful. You got up just as good as Reverend Howard over there. So at this time, I'm going to ask Anissa just to give us a few words on the resolution so you can have an idea of what we are, the City of Newark and the County of Essex, what we are inscribing in our archives about Constance Baker Motley.
Okay, good morning. It's long, I'll be short. The members of the Newark Municipal Council would like to celebrate, commend, and honor Judge Constance Baker Motley for her dedication and monumental contributions to the civil rights movement. Her legacy will continue to live on through her works and also through the memorization through the dedication of the 47th stamp in the USPS Black Heritage Stamp Series. I don't want to be too long, but I'll just wrap it up. Through this dedication, individuals from all over will be able to hear about her successful contributions to the civil rights movement. This is another great way to remember her and her efforts. Judge Constance Baker Motley will forever be remembered for her contribution and selfless efforts to provide a voice and opportunities for all African Americans.
So we have three to present. We have one from the Council President. We have one from Mayor Raz J. Baraka. And these are proclamations. They got a little gold print on them, you see. And, sir, would you present this to Mrs. Royster from the County Board of Commissioners? And it also mentions the centennial, the 100th anniversary of the founder of the Black Heritage Series, Mr. Clarence Irving.
Wow, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Let's turn it this way. So we how about that? Yeah. We can each hold one. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you all. You're welcome.
Thank you. And,
Do you want me to leave these here till later? You may leave these or take them with me now.
I'll help you with it.
Okay. I'll take these. You bring me the rest later.
Okay, before we have our closing remarks, I just want to thank the high school scholars that came out today. I want to thank all of those people that made this event a success. The committee, the program committee, Shamira Moore from customer service, she's at the Newark Post Office, USPS. Sharon Suber, president of the AAUW of New Jersey. Myself, Della Moses Walker, director of ESPR, New Jersey. Clarence McKnight, national website director for ESPR. Janice Harris Jackson, NJSC NAACP. She's the state archivist for the NAACP. She's waving over there. She's also a member of ESPR and a member of the AAUW. Mr. Bruce Morgan from the state NAACP. Narlene Casimir, president of the Association of Black Women Lawyers of New Jersey. And they're sitting at a table back there, and they would love to shake hands with you students. Mr. William D. Payne, who you just met, Deputy Chief of Staff for Essex County. Marjorie Crawford, professor at Rutgers Law School. Robert Steinbaum, Associate Dean for Advancement, Rutgers Law School. and Noreen Ibrahim, Rutgers Law School. We want to give the committee a great big hand. And I also want to, I did a little running around, and I also want to thank some folks, some friends, some neighbors, some business people who provided sandwiches, chips. No, Esper did the chips. ShopRite did the sandwiches for the young people. The young people have sandwiches and chips. Esper did the bananas and the oranges. AAUW did the water. So we have a nice little repast there for the high school students. I want to thank Rupp's Florists for donating flowers to the event. They're beautiful, just really tightened up our stage, real nice. And all of the people who gave monetary donations to help this event and help make it nice. You guys, I want to thank you very much. The Black Women Lawyers, the Association of Women Lawyers, has stamps for all of the students. And what you want to do is when they give you a stamp, you're going to place it on the back of your program, and the post office has a special postmark. We ordered a special postmark for this event, and it has a bullseye. A bullseye is what the post office uses to cancel the stamp on the envelope, and the bullseye always has a city, a state, a zip code, and a date. Well, in addition to the city, the state, the zip code, and the date, the bullseye that you received today has NAACP, Rutgers, and Esper. Insignia is an insignia right here on the, well, it's not here, but it's over there, on the bullseye. So that would be a keepsake, something that you can remember, something you can hold on to. And every time you look at this, you say, ooh, I have a keepsake postmark, and I remember all the hard work of Judge Constance Baker Motley. And you're going to take all the words that were said today about her and use those words to inspire you to move to higher heights. All righty. Did I miss anything? I get everybody? Yes, okay. So I'd like to invite to the stage Dean of Rutgers Law School, Ms. Johanna Bond.
Wow, what an incredible inspiration. We're thrilled to have so many members of the Rutgers family, the New Jersey civic community, and especially students from Central University and Barringer High Schools. Thank you for coming today. We all have learned about Judge Motley, the towering civil rights attorney who wrote the briefs and argued the cases establishing fundamental civil rights in this country. Rutgers Law School is proud to be an activist institution that has imbued our students with principles of social justice. Following their graduations, many of our students and our engaged faculty have used their legal tools to further those civil rights laws or resist their contraction when others seek to move backwards. Our speakers, Susan Davis, Dorothy Roberts, and Constance Royster, are examples of this commitment in their careers. We must all dedicate ourselves to fortifying our system of law to make a more just society, following the example of Judge Motley. I want to thank our partner organizations who made this program and last fall's stamp dedication to former Rutgers Law professor Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg possible. Once again, thank you all for coming today. We appreciate you celebrating with us. Thank you.
Can anyone spell philatelic? Yes, do I hear a hand? Can anyone spell philatelic? Okay, while you're pondering over that, just a few more little things I'd like to call to your attention. For the students, we have 3 things for you to do, okay? We're going to call you by rows. 1 row will grab a sandwich. 1 row will look at the display of our webmaster, Mr. Clarence McKnight, and 1 row will go to the postal station and pick up your program and have your stamp canceled on your program. Also, number 4, the Esper table, they're waving the Esper booklets. Our treasurer, Rosina, has produced, she's published a stamp collecting book for you to take home with you to learn more about postage stamps and stamp collecting. So there's 4 things. Your sandwich, your display, your beautiful, beautiful display of just go look and see how beautiful it is. You go to the back desk where the black women lawyers are, and then right next to that, you'll see the Esper table. Oh, that's for the students. Okay, the instructions are for the students. Okay, so now, before the benediction, is there anything else before the benediction? Because we're going to call Reverend Howard up. He's going to bless us, and he's going to give us a call to action. Okay, come on up, sir.
Let me just say, Marjorie Crawford, you know the influence you have on me. And when you told me I should come to this ceremony, it was first because you asked me. And then, of course, my regard for the honoree in this wonderful tribute, Constance Baker Motley. But I don't travel, as I think Marjorie knew very well, Brother Warren. These days, my partner and wife of 54 years, if she says no, I don't go. She is a consummate consumer, Esper, of the Black Heritage series. In our little post office in Lawrenceville, New Jersey, when the new stamp is announced, she often goes to the post office before it's actually released. And so when she walks in the door, a very welcoming woman says, "I'm sorry, Miss Howard, it's not it's not in yet." They even know what she's coming for. But you know, I'm a Baptist preacher, and my wife Constance reminds me that I married up because she is a lifelong Episcopalian. So when she admired the judge, of course, but I said she was from the St. Luke's Episcopal Church. Let's go. And she's not an early riser, but I'll tell you her devotion to this cause is reflected in the fact that at 8 o'clock this morning, she left home coming here. And I will tell you, I pride myself, as I said to Ms. Royster, of knowing about every conceivable organization of black people in the world. I'm telling you, you know, I'm a Boule man, and I know what Negroes do. But I honestly had never heard of Esper until today. Today. I've known many African-American stamp collectors, but they never told me they were in a secret society. And this has been wonderful, educational, very, very much, you know, I'm a little embarrassed, though, that she's so late in the lineup. if I can just complain. All right, so that's out of the way. Now, my job is to offer benedictions, and I want to thank all of you for being here today. I want to thank Esper and all of the others who joined with you to make this day possible. You know, when you come together on a day like this, we are reminded in a fresh way of the light that continues to illumine our pathway toward an unclaimed future. An unclaimed future, to dare to see it, even though others would think it's impossible. And there was something that lived inside Judge Motley that must also live within us if the journey toward a more perfect union is to be our lot. It will rest on your shoulders, on my shoulders, to determine if the long march toward freedom that is the legacy of African people and all people of goodwill is to continue despite the dystopian view that too many Americans have. The question is, are we prepared, young and old, to do all that we're able to do to ensure the long arc of the moral universe will indeed bend toward justice? You know, that really is the question as we honor Judge Motley today. Are we prepared to do what we can to ensure that the long arc of the moral universe bends toward justice? So be it.
That concludes our program, and I'm going to give the students instructions. The first row here, I want you to line up and come this way and start that in and look at the display, and then go to the postal station where the Black women lawyers of New Jersey are sitting, and then the Esper table, and then your lunch. Okay? So you can stand and start. The second row, come on, stand up, let's go. You know what to do? Come this way and look at the display over there, and then walk right around the back. Okay. Second row, get ready. Third row, you ready? Fourth row, you can start with lunch.